She was mocked for being single at 40, but finally met a CEO who fell in love with her. At 40, Elizabeth Morrison was often the subject of harsh judgment and pity. Unmarried and childless, society seemed to treat her singleness like a flaw. It was something her friends, family, and even strangers couldn't help but comment on. Yet, Elizabeth's life was about to take an unexpected turn. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. It's been a rough ride as we're currently battling some technical issues, but trust me, we're getting everything back and running. So stick around. I need your support on YouTube now more than ever. Thank you specially for sticking around to this very moment. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Elizabeth worked as a maid for the wealthy Wellington family. During one particularly awkward event at their penthouse, she accidentally dropped a champagne flute, shattering it on the floor. As she tried to clean up the mess, she overheard Mrs. Wellington, the lady of the house, remarking that some women were just meant to serve and would never find a place in marriage. This comment stung, reminding Elizabeth of how society had labeled her, an older, unmarried woman who was past her prime, someone defined by her job rather than her worth. The ongoing judgment from others only added to the isolation she often felt. 12 years ago, Elizabeth had been engaged, but just weeks before the wedding, she caught her fiancé in bed with her maid of honor. This betrayal crushed her and changed the course of her life. She had never expected to still be single at 40, but life didn't go as planned. Over time, her friends and family couldn't help but gossip about her. They labeled her as letting herself go, criticizing her appearance, weight, and even her hair, which she had decided to stop straightening 2 years earlier. She wasn't the conventional image of beauty. She was darker-skinned, fuller-figured, and natural in appearance. But her grandmother had always taught her that real beauty comes from feeling at home in your own skin. Despite the hurtful remarks, Elizabeth refused to fully believe the negative things others said about her. She saw her own worth, even if no one else did. She tried to shake off her frustrations while working for the Wellingtons, where she'd been employed for 7 years. Her job required her to act invisible, agreeable and forgettable in the eyes of the family and their guests. She knew how to play her part in the background of their wealthy lives, where she was often reduced to a mere servant. One day, as Elizabeth listened to Mrs. Wellington and her guests discuss an upcoming charity gala, she overheard talk about Sam Wilson, the CEO of Wilson Technologies, who was rumored to be the guest of honor. He was wealthy, successful, and single, and the women at the party couldn't help but talk about him with excitement, as if his attention was the ultimate prize. However, their comments revealed the underlying assumptions they held about people like Elizabeth, namely, that someone like her, an older black maid, wouldn't stand a chance with a man like him. The conversation left Elizabeth feeling small, but she pushed the emotions aside and returned to the kitchen. Feeling disillusioned and wanting change, Elizabeth considered quitting her job. She had enough savings to survive for a few months and was even considering going back to school to finish her degree in interior design, something she had abandoned years earlier to support her ex-fiancé's career. The thought of starting over felt daunting at 40, but she knew it was a possibility. Yet, even with her plans to leave, a text from her sister Jasmine reminded her of the challenges she still faced. Their mother kept asking about Thanksgiving, and Jasmine was tired of explaining why Elizabeth wasn't bringing anyone. The pressure from her family's pity was another weight on her shoulders, but Elizabeth was beginning to realize that her future didn't need to be defined by her past. Elizabeth had spent 12 years hiding behind work, her uniform, and a self-imposed invisibility to protect herself from hurt. But when Sam Wilson, a billionaire CEO, asked her to join him at the gala, just for company with no expectations, it marked a turning point. Elizabeth, surprised by the genuine look in his eyes, decided to step out of her comfort zone. She put on a green dress she had saved for a special occasion, and when she emerged, Sam's smile made her feel seen for the first time in years. As they walked back into the gala, all eyes turned toward her. Mrs. Wellington, seeing Elizabeth in the dress, was clearly displeased and made a pointed remark, but Sam smoothly defended her, insisting that Elizabeth had helped design the space and deserved to be recognized. He then led Elizabeth away from the gossiping crowd, where she admitted her fear of being fired for forgetting her place. Sam challenged her, asking where her place really was, suggesting that it was negotiable, not set in stone. As their conversation shifted to Elizabeth's design work for the gala, Sam was genuinely impressed. He asked if she had ever considered a career in event or interior design. Elizabeth hesitated, feeling her age, lack of experience, and the gaps in her resume would disqualify her. But Sam rejected these doubts, offering her a professional opportunity to redesign his company's office, telling her it wasn't charity, it was a business opportunity. Before she could fully process his offer, Mrs. Wellington interrupted, pulling Elizabeth away for a private conversation. The tension between them was palpable, as Mrs. Wellington was clearly displeased by Elizabeth stepping out of her assigned role. However, Sam's words had already planted a seed in Elizabeth's mind. Maybe she didn't have to remain in the shadows. Maybe she had a chance at something more. Elizabeth stood her ground as Mrs. Wellington confronted her in the study, accusing her of throwing herself at Sam Wilson and behaving inappropriately at the gala. Elizabeth calmly explained that Sam had asked her to join him, and she was merely being polite. Mrs. Wellington, however, dismissed her response, criticizing Elizabeth for acting above her station. She reminded her that Elizabeth was just a maid, a 40-year-old single woman with no reason to be anything other than invisible. Her words, meant to wound, hit their mark and reminded Elizabeth of the years she'd spent accepting society's judgment and staying small. But something had shifted inside Elizabeth. She had already written her resignation letter, and though fear had kept her there, she now felt a surge of anger and courage. In a calm but firm tone, Elizabeth began listing her accomplishments. She had been indispensable to the Wellingtons, organizing their events, buying thoughtful gifts, and managing their lives. She had been everything they needed, yet she had allowed people like Mrs. Wellington to make her feel worthless. For the first time in years, Elizabeth stood up for herself. With newfound clarity, she declared she was quitting. Mrs. Wellington, shocked and furious, tried to threaten her with a ruined reputation, promising to use her connections to destroy Elizabeth's career. But Elizabeth, unshaken, turned to face her. She sarcastically wondered what kind of reputation she had left to destroy, given how Mrs. Wellington had always viewed her. She walked out, leaving Mrs. Wellington sputtering behind her. As Elizabeth re-entered the party, she noticed how much the atmosphere had changed. The once stuffy event now had a jazz ensemble playing, creating a livelier, more soulful vibe. She briefly scanned the crowd for Sam but saw him caught in conversation with a group of men. Elizabeth was at a crossroads. She could leave, change back into her old clothes, and fade into the background. That would be the safe, smart choice. But after 12 years of playing it safe, Elizabeth realized it hadn't brought her happiness. Instead, she grabbed a glass of champagne, savoring the taste of something decadent and free. In that moment, she embraced the uncertainty of her next steps, leaving behind the life she had once allowed others to define. Elizabeth, after quitting her job in the middle of the gala, was surprised when Sam Wilson found her. He seemed harried from a conversation with venture capitalists, but quickly shifted focus to ask what had happened. Elizabeth explained she had quit, half laughing at the absurdity of the situation. Sam responded not with judgment, but with encouragement, offering her the consultation job he'd mentioned earlier. He admitted that he wouldn't hire her while she was still working for Mrs. Wellington due to a potential conflict of interest. Elizabeth, in disbelief, questioned why Sam would offer her a job, not knowing her well. Sam explained that he appreciated her for treating him like a person, not a business opportunity, unlike everyone else at the party who was trying to sell him something. He found her authenticity rare in his world, where people often wanted something from him. Elizabeth opened up, admitting her flaws, her messy life, trust issues, and isolation. Sam shared that he too was a mess, acknowledging his own workaholic tendencies and lack of meaningful relationships. He suggested they could either face their messes alone or take a chance on something different. This led to a light-hearted moment when Sam invited her to dance, despite both of them claiming they weren't good dancers. On the dance floor, amidst the scrutiny of the other guests, Elizabeth relaxed in Sam's arms, feeling a connection she hadn't felt in years. Sam reassured her that the job offer was real and not a form of manipulation, no strings attached, even if they never saw each other again. Elizabeth smiled, amused by his modesty, noting that as a billionaire CEO, he was hardly just some guy. As the song ended, Sam offered to drive her home, but Elizabeth hesitated, fearing Mrs. Wellington's possible retaliation. Sam, however, assured her that he had already fulfilled his social obligations and was free to do what he truly wanted, spending time with her. The moment marked a turning point for Elizabeth, realizing she could take control of her life and choices moving forward. As Sam Wilson and Elizabeth left the gala, Sam offered to drive her home and suggested they have coffee the next day to discuss the consultation he had offered. Elizabeth, standing at a crossroads between the safety of her old life and the uncertainty of something new, agreed to meet him. She laughed off the awkwardness, telling him she would pay since she had just quit her job and needed to be financially responsible while she still had savings. Sam agreed, and they made their way to the elevator, passing Mrs. Wellington, who was watching them with a mix of disbelief and anger. Once in the car, Sam relaxed, shedding his formal attire and making light conversation. As they drove through Manhattan traffic, Sam asked Elizabeth about her design work, and she opened up about her abandoned degree, her dreams, and the Pinterest board she had filled with design ideas. Sam encouraged her to pursue her dreams, offering to help with the consultation work to ease her financial concerns. When they arrived at Elizabeth's apartment, she felt a familiar sense of shame about her modest living conditions, but Sam, without hesitation, complimented the place, calling it honest rather than perfect. He walked her to the door, and they shared a brief but meaningful moment. Elizabeth thanked him for the evening, and Sam thanked her for being real. He then confirmed their coffee date for the next morning at Birch Coffee. As Sam left, Elizabeth felt both exhilarated and terrified by the events of the night. She went inside, collapsed onto her couch, and texted her sister about everything that had happened, eager to share the unexpected turn her life had taken. She couldn't sleep, replaying the evening in her mind, trying to make sense of it all. At 3 a.m., standing in front of her bathroom mirror, she realized how much her life had shifted in one night. She had quit her job, danced with a billionaire, and was now about to meet him for coffee. The next morning, Elizabeth found herself overthinking what to wear for their meeting, part consultation, part date, with someone who could probably buy her entire building. But as dawn broke, she felt a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation, ready for whatever this new chapter might bring. Elizabeth's morning started with a text from her sister Jasmine, who was furious after their mother had called about her quitting her job. Mrs. Wellington had clearly already contacted her mother, causing a stir over Elizabeth's decision. Elizabeth texted back, promising to explain later, but finding herself distracted by the chaos in her life. After dressing carefully, Elizabeth struggled with nerves as she paced her apartment. She was still processing the enormity of quitting her job and the uncertainty of the day ahead. Just before 9:30, her phone rang with a call from the staffing agency that had placed her with the Wellingtons. The representative, Patricia Martinez, informed her that Mrs. Wellington had complained about her leaving without proper notice and had raised concerns about her professionalism. The agency hinted at blacklisting her, leaving Elizabeth shocked and frustrated. 7 years of hard work and loyalty, now jeopardized over one night's bold decision. As if to punctuate the moment, Elizabeth received a text from Sam, confirming their coffee date. She replied, confirming she was still on, though the anxiety of it all lingered. After a tense subway ride, she arrived at Birch Coffee early, regretting her eagerness. When she spotted Sam, dressed casually in jeans and a Henley, he seemed more approachable than the billionaire she had imagined. He greeted her with that same warm smile, and they sat down. Their conversation quickly turned to the fallout from her job. Elizabeth explained that Mrs. Wellington was spreading lies about her behavior, but Sam's reaction was supportive. He didn't care about the opinions of bitter socialites, and instead, he handed her a latte, admitting he wasn't sure how she took her coffee but had made a safe choice. Elizabeth felt both reassured and touched by his thoughtfulness, realizing that despite the chaos in her life, maybe this coffee and the new opportunity with Sam were signs of something better ahead. At Birch Coffee, Sam and Elizabeth sat down to discuss the business side of the design project Sam was offering. Sam described his company's headquarters in Soho, which currently felt cold and impersonal, with a design that focused on aggressive neutrality, lots of gray and uncomfortable generic furniture. Elizabeth, eager to dive into the challenge, asked what Sam envisioned instead, and he explained he wanted the space to feel more human, comfortable, and reflective of the people who worked there. Elizabeth quickly got into work mode, taking notes and asking about the budget. Sam assured her there were no budget constraints, expressing his frustration with previous designers who didn't understand what he was looking for. Elizabeth, though excited, hesitated, pointing out her lack of formal business infrastructure. Sam was undeterred, offering to have his lawyers handle all the necessary paperwork, leaving her free to focus on the design itself. Confused but intrigued, Elizabeth asked why Sam was offering her this opportunity, given that they barely knew each other. Sam explained that he saw in her the kind of dedication and pride in her work that he valued. He reassured her that, despite her fears, he trusted her instincts, citing her previous work and the care she put into even the smallest tasks, like folding fitted sheets. Elizabeth admitted her fear of failure, which Sam met with empathy, revealing his own fears about his work and personal life. He confessed that despite his success, he was scared of losing meaningful connections and waking up one day regretting his choices. Sam then shared his fear that Elizabeth might walk away and he'd never get to know her better. Elizabeth reassured him that he wasn't broken, but she was startled by how much he understood her own feelings of inadequacy. When Elizabeth tried to steer the conversation back to a professional tone, Sam refused, expressing his desire to know her on a deeper level, her passions, her fears, and the reasons behind her decisions. He wanted to take her to dinner, to learn about her life beyond the professional boundaries. For the first time in a long while, Elizabeth was faced with a choice, between the safety of her familiar, controlled world and the possibility of something new, uncertain, and deeply personal. Sam and Elizabeth continued their conversation, and Sam made it clear that he wanted to keep things professional, respecting her boundaries while also giving her the option to walk away entirely if she wasn't comfortable. Elizabeth, though scared, decided to be honest about what she wanted. She wanted to be brave, take the design job, go to dinner with him, but also keep clear professional boundaries. Sam agreed to those terms, assuring her that the business and personal aspects would remain separate. She was mocked for being single at 40, but finally met a CEO who fell in love with her. At 40, Elizabeth Morrison was often the subject of harsh judgment and pity. Unmarried and childless, society seemed to treat her singleness like a flaw. It was something her friends, family, and even strangers couldn't help but comment on. Yet, Elizabeth's life was about to take an unexpected turn. Elizabeth worked as a maid for the wealthy Wellington family. During one particularly awkward event at their penthouse, she accidentally dropped a champagne flute, shattering it on the floor. As she tried to clean up the mess, she overheard Mrs. Wellington, the lady of the house, remarking that some women were just meant to serve and would never find a place in marriage. This comment stung, reminding Elizabeth of how society had labeled her, an older unmarried woman who was past her prime, someone defined by her job rather than her worth. The ongoing judgment from others only added to the isolation she often felt. 12 years ago, Elizabeth had been engaged, but just weeks before the wedding, she caught her fiancé in bed with her maid of honor. This betrayal crushed her and changed the course of her life. She had never expected to still be single at 40, but life didn't go as planned. Over time, her friends and family couldn't help but gossip about her. They labeled her as letting herself go, criticizing her appearance, weight, and even her hair, which she had decided to stop straightening 2 years earlier. She wasn't the conventional image of beauty. She was darker-skinned, fuller-figured, and natural in appearance. But her grandmother had always taught her that real beauty comes from feeling at home in your own skin. Despite the hurtful remarks, Elizabeth refused to fully believe the negative things others said about her. She saw her own worth, even if no one else did. She tried to shake off her frustrations while working for the Wellingtons, where she'd been employed for 7 years. Her job required her to act invisible, agreeable and forgettable in the eyes of the family and their guests. She knew how to play her part in the background of their wealthy lives, where she was often reduced to a mere servant. One day, as Elizabeth listened to Mrs. Wellington and her guests discuss an upcoming charity gala, she overheard talk about Sam Wilson, the CEO of Wilson Technologies, who was rumored to be the guest of honor. He was wealthy, successful, and single, and the women at the party couldn't help but talk about him with excitement, as if his attention was the ultimate prize. However, their comments revealed the underlying assumptions they held about people like Elizabeth, namely, that someone like her, an older black maid, wouldn't stand a chance with a man like him. The conversation left Elizabeth feeling small, but she pushed the emotions aside and returned to the kitchen. Feeling disillusioned and wanting change, Elizabeth considered quitting her job. She had enough savings to survive for a few months and was even considering going back to school to finish her degree in interior design, something she had abandoned years earlier to support her ex-fiancé's career. The thought of starting over felt daunting at 40, but she knew it was a possibility. Yet, even with her plans to leave, a text from her sister Jasmine reminded her of the challenges she still faced. Their mother kept asking about Thanksgiving, and Jasmine was tired of explaining why Elizabeth wasn't bringing anyone. The pressure from her family's pity was another weight on her shoulders, but Elizabeth was beginning to realize that her future didn't need to be defined by her past. Elizabeth had been hiding for 12 years, using work and excuses to shield herself from pain. She had learned to keep people at a distance to avoid being hurt again, especially after her fiancé's betrayal before their wedding. At 40, she had grown accustomed to being invisible, hiding behind her uniform as a maid for the wealthy Wellington family. One morning, Elizabeth received a call from Mrs. Wellington, who needed her help urgently. The event planner for an upcoming charity gala had quit, and Mrs. Wellington wanted Elizabeth to step in. Though Elizabeth wasn't an event planner, Mrs. Wellington insisted, promising triple pay to convince her. Elizabeth agreed, seeing it as a way to earn extra money and possibly leave the Wellingtons for good. For the next 2 days, Elizabeth worked tirelessly, transforming the penthouse into an elegant urban garden for the event. Despite being exhausted and surviving on coffee, Elizabeth pushed herself, determined to prove her competence and creativity, not for Mrs. Wellington, but for herself. She wanted to show that she was more than just the maid. The night of the gala, Elizabeth wore her black uniform, as instructed, despite bringing a green dress she'd bought years ago but never worn. As the guests arrived, she remained in the background, doing her job without being noticed. But when Sam Wilson, a billionaire CEO, arrived, Elizabeth couldn't help but notice him. He seemed tired and detached, unlike the other wealthy guests who were eager to socialize. As Mrs. Wellington greeted him, Elizabeth retreated to the kitchen to check on the food. To her surprise, Sam followed her, asking for a non-alcoholic drink. They shared a quiet moment in the kitchen, where Sam admitted he hated these events and revealed the pressure he felt from society. When he noticed her uniform, he remarked that she looked out of place, more fitting for the garden she had created than for the role of a maid. Elizabeth felt a wave of embarrassment but appreciated the compliment. Sam then asked her to do something unexpected, to put on the green dress and return to the party with him. He wanted an ally, someone who saw through the superficiality of the event. Elizabeth's heart raced at the suggestion. She was the help, not someone who belonged in the world of the guests. Despite her hesitation, something about Sam's sincerity made her question everything she had told herself about her place in the world. Elizabeth was at a crossroads. Should she continue hiding behind the walls she had built or take a risk and step into a new role, even if it meant facing the consequences of her actions? Their conversation took a personal turn when Elizabeth asked Sam why he was offering her the opportunity, given they barely knew each other. Sam confessed that he hadn't been interested in dating for years after some disastrous experiences. But when he met her, he felt something different, a connection. He admitted that the idea of a relationship had scared him, but meeting her made him rethink his stance. Elizabeth's phone buzzed with a call from her mother, who was undoubtedly upset about her quitting her job. Sam, noticing the expression on her face, guessed it was her mother, a sign of the pressure Elizabeth was under. She admitted her mother's warnings had always focused on the dangers of dreaming too big, a belief that had influenced her decision to abandon her design degree years ago. Sam probed gently, and Elizabeth shared that her ex-fiancé, Richard, had convinced her to let go of her dreams. Sam's perceptive response about Richard's betrayal made Elizabeth pause. He pointed out that Richard had wasted a chance to be with someone talented and strong like her, which deeply resonated with Elizabeth. Emotionally moved, Elizabeth acknowledged her long-held belief that she wasn't enough. Sam's words made her feel seen for the first time in years. Elizabeth jokingly warned she might cry in the coffee shop, and Sam, ever prepared, handed her tissues. They shared a quiet moment, and Sam admitted he wasn't perfect but was trying his best, just like everyone else. As their meeting wound down, Sam suggested they go look at the office space for the consultation or take a break. Elizabeth agreed to visit the office space first, knowing it would help her start forming ideas and give her something concrete to show when her mother called. The day was full of potential, both for the project and for whatever might develop between them. Elizabeth agreed to visit Sam's office space, even though it meant spending more time with him while her emotions were already on edge. As they walked to the office, Sam shared the building's history, revealing how he had fallen in love with the exposed brick but regretted the sterile, impersonal design choices. Elizabeth quickly grasped the problem. The space lacked soul. She told Sam the office felt like it was designed by someone afraid of judgment, using safe, neutral colors to blend in rather than stand out. Sam was struck by her insight, noting that her words seemed to capture his design philosophy and life approach. Once inside, Elizabeth assessed the executive floor, which matched Sam's description: gray walls, uncomfortable furniture, and a lack of warmth. As she took in the space, she saw its potential and suggested bold changes to make it feel alive, with colors, textures, and accents that would reflect both the office's natural beauty and Sam's innovative spirit. Sam listened intently, impressed by her vision. Their conversation then took a personal turn. Sam confessed that he wanted to kiss her but was hesitant to rush things. Elizabeth, feeling both terrified and exhilarated, chose to be brave. She kissed him, and the kiss deepened, marking a moment of vulnerability and connection after years of emotional hiding. Afterward, they shared a moment of laughter, realizing that despite the complexity of their situation, they were both ready to take risks. Sam asked if she was still interested in dinner, and Elizabeth responded with humor, acknowledging that dinner might be the simplest part of their complicated situation. In the quiet of Sam's office, they both acknowledged the profound shift that had taken place between them. As Elizabeth worked through the space, envisioning the changes she would make, she felt something she hadn't in years: alive and hopeful. The city outside continued its usual chaos, but inside Sam's office, something small but significant had begun to shift. Elizabeth, 40 years old and unemployed, was falling for a billionaire CEO she'd met less than a day ago. For the first time in 12 years, she felt ready to embrace the unknown, terrifying, and wonderful all at once. Elizabeth, excited by the challenge of redesigning Sam's office, felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. She was finally in control of something that mattered to her, without the constraints of someone else's expectations. As she walked through the space, she received a text from her sister Jasmine, who was eager to know about the developments with Sam and Mrs. Wellington. Elizabeth briefly explained the situation, including Sam's offer to design the office and her fallout with Mrs. Wellington. Jasmine, ever curious, jokingly asked if she had kissed Sam yet, and Elizabeth responded honestly, admitting that she had. When Sam arrived, casual in jeans and a Henley, he asked how she was progressing with the design. Elizabeth shared her excitement, noting that she had ideas for the conference room and executive offices, but still needed time to solidify everything. She mentioned how surreal it felt, transitioning from Mrs. Wellington's kitchen to now designing Sam's office. Sam complimented her, telling her that she had a rare ability to see potential in spaces, which made Elizabeth blush. He then asked how she was feeling about the design and everything else. Elizabeth admitted she was excited but also anxious, unsure if she was making the right decisions or if the whole thing would fall apart. Sam reassured her, telling her that there was no crash coming. He emphasized that this opportunity was hers to prove to herself that she was more than what the world had labeled her. His support made her feel seen, not as a maid or a failure, but as a woman with potential. She confided her fear of messing up, and Sam, offering his own vulnerability, assured her they'd face their fears together because nothing worthwhile comes without risk. Elizabeth, feeling encouraged, insisted that if she was going to do this, it had to be official with a proper contract. Sam agreed, promising to have everything formalized, treating her like the professional she was. They shared a light moment as Elizabeth joked about him no longer calling her the maid, and Sam promised to treat her as the designer from now on. They spent the rest of the morning discussing the office redesign, with Elizabeth outlining her bold vision. Despite her uncertainty, she was confident that she would see it through. After their tour of the office, Elizabeth realized the magnitude of what she was about to do. This was no longer just a favor, it was her future. Sam suggested they head to lunch, and though Elizabeth was still unsure of the personal dynamics between them, she agreed, excited by the idea of spending more time with him. In the following days, Elizabeth immersed herself in the design project. The office, once cold and sterile, was gradually transforming under her guidance into a space with personality and warmth. She poured herself into sourcing materials, sketching designs, and bringing the space to life. Sam checked in frequently, offering support and freedom, which motivated Elizabeth more than she expected. For the first time in years, she felt like she was in control of her own work, with no one else's expectations weighing on her. Their communication grew more personal over time, with Sam's texts both professional and encouraging. One day, Elizabeth texted him, seeking his opinion on her ideas and asking if they could meet that afternoon. Sam agreed, and they met in the executive conference room at 2 p.m. The energy between them was palpable, though neither of them knew exactly what it meant yet. Elizabeth presented her design ideas with enthusiasm, explaining her vision for a space that was more than just functional. It was a place for creativity, interaction, and comfort. Sam responded positively, expressing his approval of the designs, particularly a lounge area and an intimate meeting space. Elizabeth felt a rush of pride as Sam recognized her vision and saw it clearly. He praised her for understanding what he wanted, a space that prioritized the people working there, not just the company's success. It felt like a partnership, with Sam truly valuing her input, and Elizabeth realized that this project wasn't just about design, it was about building something meaningful together. As their professional collaboration deepened, Elizabeth felt a mix of pride, excitement, and vulnerability, unsure of what was developing between them but open to the possibilities. This project had become more than a job, it was a chance to prove her worth, both professionally and personally. Elizabeth's heart fluttered at Sam's praise for her design ideas. It wasn't just the compliment itself, but the belief he had in her vision, her ability to bring it to life. She confessed that she had been so focused on the details that she hadn't fully considered how much this project meant to him. Sam reassured her that what she was doing mattered, that her unique way of seeing the world set her apart from others. His words resonated deeply with her. He wasn't just seeing her talent, he was truly seeing her. Sam then spoke more personally, explaining that he didn't just hire her for her design skills, but because of the way she viewed the world. He admired her refusal to conform to the status quo. Elizabeth's pulse quickened as he shared how she made him feel seen, something no one else in his life had done. Her response was equally vulnerable. She admitted that Sam was someone who had given her a chance and saw her for who she really was, not just her work. She was scared of what it meant, but was willing to acknowledge the connection between them. Before they could delve deeper, Sam's phone interrupted the moment. After a brief conversation, he reluctantly stood, ready to return to work but expressing his gratitude for the time they had shared. Elizabeth, still unsettled, promised to send the updated plans later. Over the next few days, Elizabeth dove deeper into the project, realizing that the work was more than just about redesigning an office, it was about rediscovering herself. Her confidence grew as she spent her days focused on creating a meaningful space, and as she communicated more with Sam, their relationship deepened beyond professional boundaries. When she met Sam again to present the next phase of her design, the air between them was different. Sam confessed that he wanted more than just a professional relationship with her. He liked her beyond the work they were doing. Elizabeth, startled by his honesty, hesitated. She valued their professional connection but wasn't ready to complicate things. Sam assured her that he understood and was willing to keep things professional for now, but he just wanted her to know how he felt. The tension lifted, and they resumed discussing the designs with an unspoken understanding. Both were open to exploring what came next, but on their own terms, with patience and care. The project was no longer just a job, it had become a shared journey, both personal and professional. As their meeting ended, Sam casually suggested dinner, a chance to talk without focusing on the project. Elizabeth, feeling the weight of the moment, agreed. Dinner was a cozy experience at a West Village restaurant, where the atmosphere was relaxed and intimate. Despite her nerves, Elizabeth found herself at ease, enjoying the simplicity of the evening with Sam, who made her feel both nervous and comfortable at the same time. During dinner, Sam asked Elizabeth to share something about herself beyond her resume. Elizabeth revealed her love for puzzles, which she attributed to her problem-solving mindset, something that connected to her passion for design. Sam, impressed by her answer, complimented her creativity, suggesting she underestimated her abilities. Elizabeth, though flattered, admitted that she often focused on what was wrong with things rather than seeing the potential. This project, however, had allowed her to see the world differently, which was something new for her. Sam, his voice sincere, acknowledged that Elizabeth's ability to look at things from a fresh perspective was something he admired. He encouraged her to recognize her strength and talent, offering a perspective that Elizabeth wasn't used to hearing. His words, full of belief in her, made her reflect on the years she had spent doubting herself. She thanked him, admitting that she had often just existed instead of truly living. The conversation, though heavy at times, shifted to lighter topics as they enjoyed their meal, with Sam's hand brushing against Elizabeth's in a simple yet intimate gesture. As the evening came to an end, Sam expressed his gratitude for the conversation, admitting that it had been a long time since he'd had such a meaningful exchange. Elizabeth, unsure of how to finish her thoughts, acknowledged that she wasn't used to feeling like she mattered to someone, especially beyond her work. Sam reassured her, telling her that she mattered more than she knew, not just for her work but as a person. For the first time in a long time, Elizabeth believed him. The evening, filled with honest conversation and quiet moments of connection, left her feeling seen and valued, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. After their dinner, as they stepped out into the cool night air, Sam invited Elizabeth to visit the office the next day to see more of his business. Elizabeth, still unsure of what their connection meant, agreed. She was starting to feel the weight of her decision to spend more time with Sam, but she was willing to take the next step and see more of his world. Sam's suggestion that she join him for lunch the next day further signaled a shift from a professional relationship to something more personal. The following morning, Elizabeth entered the sleek office building with mixed emotions. While her work was fulfilling, she realized the connection with Sam had become more than just professional. The minimalist, sterile design of his office contrasted with Elizabeth's desire to make spaces more human, and she was eager to add warmth to it. Sam greeted her warmly, and they discussed the next steps of the project, with Elizabeth offering her vision for the space. During their conversation, Sam confessed that he valued her for more than just her design skills. He admired her for the way she saw the world and treated him as a person, not just the CEO. Elizabeth, touched by his sincerity, admitted she was unsure how to navigate their growing connection but was willing to take it one step at a time. As they reviewed the design plans, Sam expressed his belief in her ability to transform the office, emphasizing that the work they were doing together was more than just a project. It was about creating a space where people could thrive. This conversation deepened their bond, and Elizabeth realized how much she had invested in both the project and her connection with Sam. Later that week, Sam made it clear that their professional relationship was evolving, telling Elizabeth that he valued her as more than just a designer. Elizabeth, feeling vulnerable but also hopeful, admitted her fear of trusting someone again but expressed a desire to take things slow. Sam reassured her, and they shared a tender kiss, solidifying their mutual understanding that they were in this together. Elizabeth, for the first time in years, felt ready to take a chance on something real. Thank you for watching this video to the end. I'm pretty sure you enjoyed it. Please, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please kindly do so. Just 1 second. Yes, 1 second. God bless you.